shocking prediction: 10 Asian countries that Trump doesn't want in the United States. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Yoda. In a world driven by fear and division, immigration policies often reflect more than just national security. They reveal deep-rooted anxieties and shifting global power. Under Trump's tough approach, some Asian nations found themselves quietly pushed out of America's welcome zone. From sudden visa crackdowns to whispered blacklists, it's no longer just politics, it's personal. So which 10 Asian countries are at the center of Trump's silent storm? On the journey of wisdom, we explore shocking predictions and dive deep into 10 Asian countries that Trump doesn't want in the United States. Whether it's political rivalry, economic friction, or cultural misunderstanding, these nations are facing more walls than bridges in America today. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring the bell to stay updated with thoughtful insights and untold stories from around the world. Number 1. China. The strained relationship between the United States and China has long been a delicate balancing act. But in recent years, particularly during former President Donald Trump's administration, tensions escalated to new heights. Rooted in concerns over national security, economic rivalry, and political influence, Trump's approach to China was marked by a series of aggressive policies aimed at reducing Chinese presence and influence within the US. One of the most impactful measures involved restricting certain visa categories, especially for Chinese students and researchers in crucial areas such as science, technology, and engineering. These restrictions were justified by fears that Chinese nationals might be gathering sensitive intellectual property and relaying it back to China, potentially harming US economic and technological interests. This not only disrupted the academic and professional aspirations of many individuals, but also strained educational institutions and research collaborations that had long benefited from international exchange. Alongside academic limitations, Chinese investors and business professionals encountered heightened suspicion and stricter regulations. The Trump administration took steps to curtail the operations of Chinese-owned companies on American soil, citing concerns ranging from data security to economic imbalance. Forbes reported a striking decline of nearly 40% in Chinese visa approvals compared to previous administrations, reflecting how deep the policy shift ran. These moves were not just bureaucratic changes. They fueled broader public sentiment, intensifying anti-China rhetoric and suspicion. The trade wars and diplomatic friction that followed created a chilling effect, not only on business, but also on human connection and cross-cultural understanding. As we step into 2025, the echoes of these decisions are still felt, reminding us that political actions often ripple far beyond the headlines. For those between the ages of 30 and 65 navigating a world of uncertainty, it's important to stay informed, to seek deeper understanding beyond media narratives, and to foster compassion where fear and mistrust might otherwise grow. Global events may be out of our direct control, but our response, choosing empathy over blame, curiosity over fear, can shape the world around us. Let us not be quick to judge entire nations by the politics of a few, and instead focus on how we as individuals can contribute to a more mindful and united future. Number 2. Iran. Let's talk about Iran, number 2 on this list, and the deepening challenges its people face, especially in light of stricter immigration policies in 2025. If you're someone who's been following US politics, especially during Trump's time, you might recall how Iran has often been placed under intense scrutiny. By 2025, these tensions have only deepened. Under Trump's administration, Iran remained high on the list of countries considered a national security threat, which led to even harsher restrictions. According to CNN, one of the most impactful moves was the expansion of the travel ban, a policy that practically shut the door for many Iranians wanting to work, study, or reunite with family in the United States. This wasn't just about politics. It touched the lives of everyday people, students, scholars, engineers, and family members who had nothing to do with global diplomacy or government disputes. Many Iranian Americans raised their voices, saying the policy didn't just target a government, it punished innocent individuals who had dreams, goals, and loved ones across borders. Now, think about this. If you were a student accepted into a top university or a scientist invited to work on a breakthrough project, and suddenly that opportunity vanished, not because of your actions, but because of where you were born, how would that make you feel? According to the Washington Post, visa approvals for Iranians dropped by more than 50%, even for those who had legal backing and were fully qualified. These are not just numbers. They represent real people's lives being put on hold. And with the continuing political strain between the US and Iran, this situation doesn't seem to be changing soon. In fact, Iran remains one of the least welcomed Asian countries in the US, not because of its people, but because of a government seen as a threat through the lens of international politics. So here's the deeper question. How do we, as a global society, balance security and compassion? Can we protect national interests without closing the door on innocent people seeking peace, opportunity, and connection? This part of the story reminds us that the real cost of political decisions often falls on those with no power to change them. And while leaders speak of threats and borders, the human cost quietly rises. The lesson here? Before we judge a nation or its people based on headlines or policy, let's look closer. Let's ask what it means to be fair and how we can create a world where safety and kindness walk hand in hand. Because in the end, the strength of any country isn't just in its defense systems or policies, but in how it treats the strangers at its door. Number 3. Afghanistan. Let's talk about something that often gets lost in the headlines but touches real lives in deep and painful ways. What's happening with Afghan immigrants, especially those trying to rebuild their lives after years of war, conflict, and cooperation with the United States? Have you ever thought about what it must feel like to risk your life supporting a foreign army only to be left behind when that army pulls out? That's exactly what thousands of Afghans are facing today, especially after the dramatic shift in US immigration policy under former President Trump. When the US military withdrew from Afghanistan and the Taliban regained power, it triggered a desperate rush for safety, especially among interpreters, journalists, and those who had worked side by side with American troops. Many of them had been promised protection, even granted special visa programs that should have helped them resettle safely in the United States. But suddenly, things changed. Those programs were halted, applications denied or left in limbo, and doors that once offered hope were now shut. Why did this happen? Under Trump's stricter immigration stance, Afghan refugees found themselves viewed more as potential threats than as trusted allies. He publicly stated that allowing them in could pose national security risks, despite the fact that many had already been thoroughly vetted and had years of loyal service alongside US forces. This narrative of fear led to real consequences. Even Afghan families already living in the US began to feel the weight of suspicion as background checks became more intense, visa processes dragged on endlessly, and hope began to fade. According to the Department of Homeland Security, Afghan applicants now face some of the longest processing delays of any nationality trying to enter the United States. Imagine the anxiety of waiting months or even years, not knowing if your application will be approved, while your loved ones remain in danger halfway across the world. Now, ask yourself, is this how we treat people who stood by us in the most dangerous moments? Can a society claim to stand for justice and freedom while turning its back on those who risked everything for those ideals? These aren't just policy issues. They're human stories of survival, trust, betrayal, and resilience. So how do we balance national security with compassion? What kind of message are we sending to the world when loyalty is met with a closed door? In the unfolding story of 2025 and all the uncertainties it brings, it's worth pausing and asking, are we becoming more connected and caring, or more divided and fearful? This is not just a story about Afghanistan. It's a story about us, our values, and what kind of world we're choosing to build. If you've watched up to this point, you're clearly curious about the global shifts shaping our world. Comment below with Global Truth Seeker to show you're ready to uncover the hidden stories behind politics and power. Don't click away just yet. There's more eye-opening insight ahead. Stay until the end to discover why these 10 Asian countries might be kept at arm's length and what it really means for all of us. Number 4. Pakistan. In recent years, Pakistani nationals have found themselves increasingly caught in the tightening grip of US immigration policies, particularly under former President Trump's administration. The measures were driven largely by heightened security concerns and a push for stricter border control, with Pakistan often being placed under intense scrutiny. According to the New York Times, the approval rate for visas issued to Pakistanis dropped significantly during this period, especially for students and professionals. Many young minds, once hopeful about studying in the United States, suddenly faced delayed applications or outright denials, losing precious years of academic growth and global opportunity. By 2025, reports from US Citizenship and Immigration Services revealed that student visa approvals for Pakistani citizens had declined by nearly 45%, a staggering number that left families discouraged and futures uncertain. In the face of such policies, even those who had once found a place in American universities or workplaces were left navigating increasingly complex and drawn-out vetting procedures, with longer background checks and stricter security screenings becoming the norm. Homeland Security reports also placed Pakistan among the countries with the highest visa rejection rates, highlighting the level of suspicion that had been institutionalized. This stance is particularly paradoxical, given Pakistan's long-standing role as a strategic ally in South Asia. Despite diplomatic cooperation, the human impact of these policies, students turned away, families separated, careers halted, has left many wondering whether goodwill and shared interests still hold sway in the shadow of fear-driven governance. The teachings of the Buddha remind us, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. When a nation closes its doors out of fear, it often fosters more division than safety. True security is not born from walls or vetting forms alone, but from mutual understanding, trust, and compassion. As we reflect on this global trend through the lens of spiritual wisdom, we are reminded that the world is deeply interconnected. What affects one affects all. In our modern lives, especially for those aged 30 to 65 who are guiding families, mentoring youth, or seeking meaning in midlife, this situation serves as a quiet but powerful lesson. Let us advocate for balance, not extremes, in policy and perception. As the Chinese proverb says, "When the winds of change blow, some build walls, others build windmills." May we be among those who build wisely, keeping our hearts open while remaining aware, and encouraging the next generation to seek knowledge, peace, and connection beyond borders. Number 5. North Korea. Let's talk about a country that continues to stir global tension, North Korea. For decades, it stood at odds with the United States, and that relationship only grew colder under the leadership of Donald Trump. During his presidency and into the unfolding events of 2025, policies targeting North Korean nationals became increasingly severe. As reported by the Washington Post, North Korea is still one of the most heavily sanctioned nations in the world, and under Trump's administration, a complete ban was placed on North Korean immigrants entering the US. This wasn't just a minor restriction, it was a full travel ban, first initiated in 2017 and later reinforced to become even more rigid by 2025. The impact? Nearly all paths to legal entry have been blocked. Whether for humanitarian reasons, diplomacy, or family reunification, visa applications face almost insurmountable barriers, leaving North Koreans in deep isolation from the outside world. Now think about this. What happens when a whole population is shut out from the global community, especially those who are fleeing oppression? According to Amnesty International, many defectors who risk their lives to escape North Korea's regime are being denied refuge in the US, often rerouted to places like South Korea or parts of Europe. The justification? National security concerns. But here's the deeper question we must ask ourselves. Are these blanket policies truly protecting a nation, or are they abandoning those who are already victims of suffering? With tensions between the US and North Korea still running high and political rhetoric fueling fear, the door remains tightly shut for those simply seeking safety and a new beginning. In a world already fraught with division and fear, how can we as individuals contribute to a future built on compassion and understanding rather than exclusion? How do we balance national security with our shared human responsibility to help those in need? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. In the end, let us not forget the value of empathy, the courage to see others as fellow human beings, and the wisdom to choose compassion, even when fear tempts us to turn away. Number 6. Myanmar. Let's take a moment to reflect together on something that goes beyond news headlines, something that touches real lives, real hopes, and real dreams. Imagine being from Myanmar, a country already burdened by years of internal conflict and ethnic tensions, especially the heartbreaking struggles of the Rohingya people. Now, imagine on top of that the door to one of the world's most promising lands, America, slowly closing. According to recent developments, Myanmar is now one of the Asian nations most affected by the US government's tightening immigration stance, particularly under former President Trump's policies. Citing concerns over human rights violations, political instability, and national security risks, the United States has placed Myanmar under heavy travel scrutiny. This means fewer visas, fewer chances for Myanmar citizens to work, study, or even seek safety and a fresh start abroad. What does it feel like to have your path to opportunity suddenly cut short, not because of your own actions, but because of where you come from? As reported by Reuters, the number of work and student visas granted to Myanmar nationals has dropped sharply, by more than 60% compared to earlier years. For those who once dreamed of a better life through education or employment in the US, the reality now is filled with uncertainty. Trump's administration emphasized national security, but in doing so, many innocent lives are caught in the crossfire of policy. Can we pause for a second and ask ourselves, how do we balance national interests with compassion? What happens to the humanity in policy making? This story isn't just about politics. It's about people, about families, about futures that hang in the balance. When we allow fear to dictate our policies, we risk losing the very compassion that connects us as human beings. So, I ask you, dear listener, how can we hold space for both security and kindness? Can a society truly thrive if it builds higher walls instead of longer tables? As Myanmar's citizens face one of the most restrictive immigration environments among Asian nations in 2025, we are reminded that the suffering of others is not separate from our own. The world is deeply interconnected, and the pain of one nation inevitably echoes in the hearts of all. What kind of world are we shaping for the generations to come? One that welcomes, or one that rejects? These are the questions worth meditating on as we continue on this journey of wisdom together. Still watching? That means you're not just a viewer. You're someone who dares to question the narrative. Drop "Truth Revealed" in the comments if you're ready to dive deeper into the truths they don't want you to know. Keep watching. We're about to expose the reasons behind these shocking exclusions that could reshape the world map. Number 7. Philippines. Although the United States and the Philippines have shared a long history of cooperation, particularly in areas of defense and migration, recent years have seen this relationship strained, especially when it comes to immigration. Under Trump's administration, a series of immigration policies were implemented that made it increasingly difficult for Filipinos to enter or stay in the US. The visa rejection rate for Filipino applicants has sharply risen, while those applying are subjected to longer wait times, additional scrutiny, and a growing sense of uncertainty. Much of this tightening stems from an effort to reduce family-based immigration, a category where Filipinos have historically been one of the top beneficiaries. Many families who once dreamed of reunification are now caught in a bureaucratic limbo, their applications trapped in a swelling backlog with no clear resolution in sight. The Department of Homeland Security has also highlighted concerns around visa overstays, noting that a significant number of Filipinos overstay their permitted time in the US, prompting stricter entry requirements and a surge in deportations. Furthermore, stricter labor laws have directly impacted the Filipino workforce in America, especially those in essential roles like nursing, caregiving, and domestic service. Roles that not only support the US economy, but often reflect the spirit of compassion and service rooted deeply in Filipino culture. These policy shifts have created a challenging landscape for many, fostering anxiety for those with dreams of a better life and for families hoping to reunite. As we look ahead to 2025, unless there's a significant change in direction, many Filipinos will continue to face steep barriers when trying to build a future in the United States. This moment calls for deep reflection, not only on policy but on human dignity. As the Buddha once said, "In separateness lies the world's great misery. In compassion lies the world's true strength." In today's global society, we are reminded that every immigration policy affects not just numbers, but real people, real stories, and the delicate threads of family and hope. For those feeling the weight of these restrictions, take heart in resilience and patience, and continue to hold space for kindness and clarity. While borders may harden, the human spirit, when guided by understanding and unity, can still find a way forward. Number 8. Indonesia. Let's talk about something that doesn't often make headlines but deeply impacts the lives of thousands: how political decisions ripple across borders and change people's futures. Take Indonesia, for example. It's the fourth most populous country in the world, full of vibrant culture, hard-working people, and a growing youth population with big dreams. But during the Trump administration, the path for Indonesians trying to enter the United States became much more difficult. The visa rejection rate for Indonesian nationals nearly doubled, according to the Jakarta Post. What caused this sudden tightening? One reason cited by the Trump administration was national security. With Indonesia being marked as a country with a high rate of visa overstays, this label led to more deportations and fewer visas being approved, even for those simply seeking education, travel, or a chance to build a better life. Another layer to this challenge came from Trump's economic policies. As tensions rose between the US and several Asian economies, Indonesian business people and investors found more roadblocks when applying for work and investment visas. It wasn't just about paperwork. It was about being seen as a potential risk rather than an opportunity. So here's the question. What happens to a person's dream when a door they hope to walk through suddenly shuts? For many Indonesians, the slowing economy at home made moving abroad seem like a lifeline, a way to support families, grow careers, and access better education. But with the US becoming less welcoming under these immigration policies, many have had to turn elsewhere, searching for countries that still hold their arms open. Think about how such policies affect not just individuals, but families, communities, and even the global perception of fairness and opportunity. How do we balance national security with compassion? How do we protect borders without building walls around empathy? The lesson here isn't just about immigration or one country's policy, it's about the larger truth that every decision we make as nations or individuals creates ripples in someone else's life. When we judge people not by their intentions or character, but by assumptions and statistics, we risk losing the very fabric that connects humanity: trust, understanding, and mutual growth. In a world that often chooses fear over compassion, may we learn to ask better questions and make room for more thoughtful answers. Number 9. Bangladesh. Let's talk about something that doesn't just affect policies or borders, but real people, their dreams, and their future. Have you ever wondered how global politics can change the course of someone's life just because of where they're from? Let's take a moment to look closely at Bangladesh, a nation rich in culture, resilience, and human potential, but facing growing challenges on the world stage, especially when it comes to immigration policies, particularly under the Trump administration. Tracy was trained as a... Imagine being a young student in Dhaka, full of ambition, dreaming of studying in the United States. Maybe you've worked hard, secured a spot in a reputable college, and now you're ready to apply for a visa. But the doors are slowly closing. According to the US State Department, the visa rejection rate for Bangladeshi applicants has risen sharply. What used to be a hopeful journey is now clouded by uncertainty and delay. But why is this happening? A lot of it stems from increasingly strict policies around work and student visas. The Trump administration introduced deeper background checks, longer wait times, and higher denial rates, especially targeting countries like Bangladesh. This means that people who are not only qualified, but also bring cultural diversity and hard work to the US are being held back, forced to look elsewhere. Countries like Canada, Australia, or even parts of Europe are becoming the new destinations for these dreamers, offering more welcoming policies and a smoother path forward. But what's truly driving these changes in the US? Beyond just immigration policy, there are deeper concerns, such as illegal migration and human trafficking. Homeland Security reports show that a significant portion of undocumented immigrants from South Asia entering the US originate from Bangladesh, which has prompted more aggressive deportation measures. This has not only led to more Bangladeshis being sent back home, but has also strained diplomatic ties between the two nations. Now imagine being one of those individuals, perhaps already in the US, working to support your family back home and suddenly facing the threat of being uprooted. What does that feel like? The fear, the uncertainty, and the sense of lost opportunity are very real, and all of this is happening against the backdrop of Bangladesh's own internal struggles, like overpopulation, limited job opportunities, and economic challenges that push more people to seek a better life abroad. But with America becoming less accessible, where will they turn next? What does this say about our world's compassion, or lack of it? Can we find a balance between national security and human dignity? It's important to reflect not just on what's happening, but on how it affects people on the ground. What kind of future are we building when ambition meets a wall of policies? How can we as global citizens encourage a world where borders don't limit potential, but help guide it safely? The story of Bangladesh is more than a statistic. It's a mirror showing us how deeply connected politics, humanity, and hope truly are. Number 10. Syria. In the years following the devastating civil war that tore Syria apart, millions of innocent people, families, children, the elderly, have been caught in the crossfire of violence and political instability. While the global community has expressed concern, and some countries have opened their doors to those fleeing horror, the United States, under Trump's administration, took a much different approach. In the name of national security and counter-terrorism, the doors that were once slightly open for Syrians seeking refuge or reunion with loved ones have largely been slammed shut. Previously, thousands of Syrians found safety in the US, but as of 2025, that number has dropped by more than 90%, a staggering decline that reflects not just a shift in policy, but a shift in compassion. The barriers now in place go beyond just numbers. They cut deep into the human experience. Stricter screening protocols and increased background checks have made it almost impossible for Syrian families to reunite, with even family reunification visas trapped in bureaucratic limbo. According to Human Rights Watch, these policies have created a kind of silent suffering, where the hope of safety dims with each passing year. The Department of Homeland Security now subjects Syrian applicants to some of the longest and most uncertain processing times in the world, leaving families waiting endlessly with no clear answers, often for years. Even those with valid reasons to travel or urgent humanitarian needs are caught in the web of suspicion and slow-moving systems. The unresolved Syrian conflict only adds more weight to this already heavy burden, while US foreign policy continues to harden its stance on the Middle East. For many Syrians, the American dream has become a distant echo, drowned out by politics and fear. And this is where we must pause, not just to look at the numbers or policies, but to reflect on our shared humanity. In modern life, when we so often speak of progress and global unity, how do we reconcile that with closed borders and forgotten people? As individuals, we may not control government policy, but we can choose empathy over indifference. Let this be a reminder to check how our values show up in our actions and whether we are building a world guided by fear or by compassion. In the end, what defines a society is not just its strength, but its willingness to care for the most vulnerable. As we've seen today, behind every policy are real people, students, families, workers, whose lives are shaped by decisions made far beyond their control. From China to Syria, these 10 Asian countries face not just closed borders, but closed opportunities, closed dreams, and in many cases, closed hearts. But here's what matters most. While we may not shape foreign policy, we do shape the kind of world we live in through awareness, compassion, and the courage to ask deeper questions. So let's keep questioning, let's keep learning, and let's walk this journey of wisdom together. If this video gave you something to think about, please like, share, and subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the eye-opening stories we're sharing next. Until then, stay mindful, stay compassionate, and thank you for being part of this journey.